Greetings everybody. We have recently been given the announcement that the coronavirus lockdown in South Africa will be extended for at least another 2 weeks. And it's possible that you may be feeling a bit of anxiety at the situation and what's happening in the world. The Bible tells us though that we must be anxious for nothing, but in everything through prayer and supplication to let our requests be known before the throne of God. You see, the situations in the world, like the coronavirus, like the government's response, and everything that's happening, is very easy for our fleshly frame to become anxious, to think, what's going on? How am I going to survive? But we must take no thought for these things. We must have faith in God and trust Him that in these situations, He is in control and He knows exactly what's going on and exactly what's going to happen and come out of the situation. And we must let our requests be known to God and have the faith to say that He hears us and He wants the best for us. But it's very easy to maybe say, okay, well, I shouldn't feel any stress in my walk. I shouldn't feel any difficulty in my walk with God because He's told us not to be anxious for anything. And I want to talk about this concept of maybe the difference between anxiety and stress and feeling the stress of walking the Christian walk. You see, we will feel the stress and the difficulty of the walk in serving the Lord. And we see Jesus Christ, when He was in the Garden of Gethsemane, how much He was struggling and fighting with the fact that He has to go through this, and how much the situation and the trial and the temptations in the situation of going to the cross really affected Him. And these things will affect us. Trials and temptations in life will affect us. We read how it affected Jesus in Luke 22, verse 42. It said, saying, Father, if you be willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. And there appeared an angel unto him from heaven, strengthening him. And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly. And his sweat was, as it were, great drops of blood falling to the ground. The cross for Jesus Christ put an intense amount of stress upon His frame, because it was something that He knew He was going to go through. And we need to realize that in our Christian walk, there will be times where we'll go through difficulties that it will put such a load of pressure upon us, and there's no way to get around it. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the only way to get past something will be through it. I think about sometimes I've prayed to the Lord. I said, Lord, if I can just not see this person tomorrow, if I can just miss them altogether, so I don't have to go through this altercation that I know is going to happen, that I'm going to have to exercise self-control in this situation. And sometimes in trials, I say, Lord, could you take this trial from me? Could you just work things that I don't have to go through this specific trial? And sometimes He says yes. And sometimes you miss the temptation. And sometimes you miss the trial. But other times you don't. Other times you have to go through it. And those times it puts pressure and stress upon you. And how are we meant to react in those situations? You see, we shouldn't be surprised by these situations. Jesus says, if anyone will come after me, let him take up his cross. And we need to realize that the Christian walk is a walk of suffering. The Christian walk is a walk where we deliberately take on suffering and pain. And it's the suffering to resist temptations, and it's the pain for the persecution that comes from being a Christian and from the world seeing that we are different. We've got to take these on. And Jesus says, if anyone comes after me, you've got to be able to take these things on in your life. We see in the book of Hebrews chapter 12, it says, wherefore, seeing we are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin that does so easily beset us, and let us run the race with patience that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before Him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider Him that endured such a contradiction of sinners against Himself, lest ye be wearied and faint in your mind. ye have not resisted unto blood, striving against sin. The guidance is very clear. In those situations, and there will be, I can assure you, or assure myself at least, because everybody listening to this will have their own type of battles that they will fight. No Christian goes into heaven without their armor having scuff on it. We all have battles, we all have fights that we will go through regularly. Difficult things, difficult temptations that sometimes only we know about, why it's so tough for us. Trials that sometimes only we know about. And everybody listening to this, if you're a Christian, you will know that you have got battles that you face that you can't get around, that you'll have to go through, and it might be putting pressure upon you. And in that situation, look to Jesus. And at the same time, we need to be able to draw strength from the fact that there are fights that we shouldn't be fighting. That in our heads, we shouldn't be wrestling with the fact that there's coronavirus in the world and what's going to happen. We can rest in God in this. We can rest in the fact that He knows what's going on. We can rest in the fact that He knows what's happening with the government, and He's set the government in place. And these things don't need to worry us. So we need to not be anxious for the things that we could be anxious for. And for the things that we can't get around, for the stresses and the trials and the temptations of the Christian walk, in this time, I can't offer magical relief saying this is how it can all go away. No, there will be things that you will fight and you will go. And my encouragement is that in that battle that you're fighting, that we look to Jesus. We look at Him, how He went through the cross, how He suffered in Gethsemane, and how He eventually made the decision that I'm going to go through this. I'm going to suffer through this. Not my will, but thine be done. Amen. Bless you, folks.